Hello everyone, I'm Joel Dipolinoho, and today I'll be explaining 15 topics of historical events that happened several years ago. The first one is the Library of Congress was established in 1802. On January 26, 1802, President Thomas Jefferson approved the first legislation that defined the role and functions of the new institutions. The Library of Congress is the nation's oldest federal cultural institution and serves as the research arm of Congress. The second one was the Research on Persistence of Vision, published in 1824. Persistence of vision traditionally refers to the optical illusion that occurs when visual perception of an object does not cease for some time after the rays of light proceeding from it have ceased to enter the eye. The third one is the invention of telegraph in Great Britain and the United States. In 1837, the British inventors Sir William Fothergill Cooke and Sir Charles Wheatstone obtained a patent on a telegraph system that employed six wires and an actuated five needle pointers attached to five galvan scopes and the receiver. In 1861, motion pictures were projected onto a screen. In France, Auguste and Louis Lumiere, who manufactured photographic equipment, created their own projector and camera. They reduced Edison's 48 frames per second to 16 and called their projector the cinematograph, from the Greek word for movement, kinema, and drawing, graphica. Paul and Lumiere projected their motion pictures onto a screen. This meant many people at once could watch a large image and do so while seated. In 1876, the Dewey Decimal System was introduced. Melville Lewis Cusot, or Melville Dewey, was an influential American librarian and an educator. He is the inventor of Dewey Decimal System of library classification. The main goals for Dewey were to provide correctness and reliability. The Dewey Decimal Classification, or DDC system, is a general knowledge organization tool that continuously revives to keep pace with knowledge. The system was conceived by Melville Dewey in 1873 and first published in 1876. The DDC is published by OCLC, or Online Computer Library Center Incorporated. In 1877, Edward Muybridge demonstrated high-speed photography. The first major breakthrough with high-speed cameras was in 1878. Edward Muybridge, a British expat and photographer living in California, was commissioned to use photograph to determine whether a horse lifted all four hooves off the ground when galloping. Muybridge demonstrated conclusively that a horse's legs, which had been represented in art incorrectly for thousands of years, did in fact all leave the ground at the same time, while in a trot. In 1899, first magnetic recordings were released. At the Copenhagen Telegraph Company in 1898, Danish inventor Valdemar Poulsen recorded his voice by feeding a telephone microphone signal to an electromagnetic that he will move along a steel piano wire. In 1899, he filed a patent and founded a company to build the telegraphone, a pioneering telephone answering machine. In 1902, motion pictures special effects were used. George Méliès, a magician-turned-filmmaker, introduced innovative special effects in the first real science fiction film, Le Voyage dans Lune, aka A Trip to the Moon. Movies enabled people to travel the world vicariously and experience tragedy, love, and nearly other emotion. Movies spread quickly, making them one of the most accessible and beloved forms of entertainment in the world. In 1923, television camera tube was invented by Zivorikin. A Russian-born American, Vladimir Zivorikin, invented the iconoscope in 1923, now commonly referred to as the father of television. Zivorikin worked at the Westinghouse Electronic Company. At the time, he filed a patent for the iconoscope. According to the patent, he planned for the device to be part of a completely electronic television system. It would take Zivorikin 6 more years, however, before he could actually construct an effective electronic receiver, which he dubbed the kinescope. 1926, first practical sound movie. Don Juan, the first major motion picture to premiere with a full-length synchronized soundtrack audio recording engineer George Graves, the first in Hollywood to hold the job, would supervise sound on Woodstock 44 years later. 1939 regularly scheduled television broadcasting began in the U.S. In April 1939, RCA's National Broadcasting Company, or NBC, introduced regularly scheduled electronic television broadcasting in America. The first television broadcast aired was the dedication of the RCA Pavilion at the 1939 New York World's Fairground. In 1940, beginnings of information science as a discipline. The roots of the discipline of information science lay in the three post-World War II developments: the Shannon-Weaver information theory model, Norbert Wiener's conception of the science of cybernetics, and rapid advances in the design and production of electronic computers. 1945, Vannevar Bush foresaw the invention of hypertext. Memex Vannevar Bush is normally considered the grandfather of hypertext, since he proposed a system we would now describe as a hypertext system as long as 1945. This system, the Memex or memory extender, was never implemented, however, but was only described in theory in Bush's papers. 1971, Intel introduced the first microprocessor chip, created in January 1971 by a team of logic architects and silicon engineers, Federico Fagen Marcian or TED, Hoff Stanley Mazer, and Masatoshi Shima for Japanese calculator manufacturer Busicom. The centerpiece of the fourth chip set was the 4004, initially described as 4-bit microprogrammable CPU. The Intel 4004 was the world's first microprocessor, a complete general-purpose CPU on a single chip released in March 1971 and using cutting-edge silicon gate technology. The 4004 marked the beginning of Intel's rise to global dominance in the processor industry. 1972 optical laser disc was developed by Philips and MCA. MCA and Philips developed laser technology for distributing consumer movies. Victorian music box, disc, and phonograph records played significant roles in enabling the music industry, but until the introduction of Laserdisc in the late 1970s, no non-magnetic disc exerted a significant impact on computer storages. The Pioneer PR7820 was the first mass-produced industrial Laserdisc player, sold originally as the MCA DiscoVision PR7820.